A few weeks ago I told you about a two-step process that I used to start all of my tomato and pepper plants. I call it bulk sowing. I'm not sure what the traditional term for it is, but I surface sowed a whole bunch of tomatoes, peppers, herbs, and what have you into little pots, and with the hopes of them germinating and then being able to go back later and pick them out and put them into individual cell trays or pots for the purpose of selling them at my seedling sale or planting them in my own garden. And would you look at them now? This little pot of homestead tomato seeds or tomato plants has the potential to yield about 10 to 15 different little individual plants. The 3 pots of San Marzano tomatoes yielded 40 plants. So results have been good. These guys have been going for a few weeks now. They are starting to get just really good, healthy growth. So it's time that they move on lest they become root bound. The longer I let them go, the more difficult this process is going to become. I've been in the process of mapping both my kitchen garden and our new in-ground garden that's going in the ground sometime in April. Our kitchen garden, which you guys have seen, we did a project last year. Look up above me for the link. We did a project where we built out the beds and what have you. The kitchen garden is really geared towards the food that we are going to eat during the summer with some fall and winter preservation. The in-the-ground garden is really geared towards food preservation and setting in our winter stores. It's going to be the home of all of those San Marzano tomatoes, which I intend to dry can, what have you. It's also going to be filled with potatoes, soup beans, corn, just different things that we can put up in the fall and late summer for use during the winter. The kitchen garden is geared more towards what we're going to use in that season. By planting the kitchen garden, I have a production list of the plants that I will need to fill my beds, as they are currently mapped out. Due to the kitchen garden map production list, I know that I will need at least 20 full-size tomato plants and about 12 to 15 cherry tomato plants. So I'm going to go through and pick out the ones I want and pot up the superfluous plants. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to do this. So here we have the brandywine. And we have the black crim. I already potted up my bush romas. Of the 4 seeds I planted, 3 of them came up and got potted. So that was very exciting. These are going to go back on the shelf. So we're going to start with the big rainbow, the mortgage lifter, and the homestead tomato. For our garden, we have, I'm going to do 2 of each. And for the seedling sale, I'm going to use these 4-inch pots so I don't have to repot them and they don't become root bound. I have a new shelf coming. Well, actually it's here. We have to put it up. But it's gonna go up tonight because I am literally out of space between the vegetables and the flower farm. There is no more room on the shelves. So we had to build another grow station. And that was kind of my plan, was to expand as needed rather than all at once. So let's get started. The key to making this work is a very nice moist soil. You want it to feel like a wrung out sponge. It gives your roots that you're going to transplant into the soil something nice and moist to grab onto, so it starts to immediately establish itself. At least that's been my experience. Your mileage may vary. If there's another way that you guys do this, leave me a comment in the comments. Let me know. I'm curious. I always like to learn new ways of doing things. This is what works for me. This is by no means the be all end all. We're going to start with this homestead tomato. I couldn't remember what it was called. And we're just going to gently, where'd that tool go? I have a tool I like to use. There it is. We're going to use this little planting fork to gently lift the seedlings out of the pot. In clumps. That's the goal. You want to do it in clumps. You're just going to kind of lay it out on the tray and kind of separate them. We're just going to start with a small group of clumps. And one of the great things about this technique is this is your chance to basically mitigate any legginess. And you're just going to kind of also inspect your plants and see. You don't want to pick a plant that's not going to survive. This guy's very healthy looking. He may not be the biggest, but he's definitely looking pretty good and healthy. Actually, all these guys look pretty good. You don't want to use like the little stunted guy. He's not doing as hot. If you can leave a little bit of native earth intact on the plant's roots, all the better. So I filled the first part of this pot with just some regular potting mix, and I'm putting the more moist soil up here on top. To be too wet. And then we're going to use our dibbler to dibble a little hole in it. We're going to go about an inch, maybe an inch and a half down. Let's see, what is this? Yeah, an inch and a half down. You're going to make a little hole. And you're going to take your seedling and you're going to gently put it in the hole. You're going to use your hands to kind of mush the dirt around said seedling and plant it. You can plant tomatoes deep. I find that a lot of things can be planted deep. Sometimes you get a little bit of transplant shock and they slow down growing for a little while, but usually they bounce back and you end up with a much stronger plant. You see, it goes really fast. You just have to be very gentle, not force the plant. If you have a plant that's still a little leggy, you can kind of mound the soil up around it, give it a nice firm little push right there. Keep losing my dibbler. Where did it go? That little bit of native soil gives the roots, it helps kind of insulate the roots against too much transplant shock. I've started using this technique on a lot of things. I've used it on echinacea. I've used it on bachelor buttons. I've used it on stock to great success. I was having a lot of issues with stock, and I started using this technique, and my stock is much healthier than it was before. Actually, let me show you that. When I transplanted the stock I'm about to show you, it was this size 1 week ago. Now it looks like this. It's growing beautifully. It settled into its new home very easily and just took off. And stock was one of those plants that I was having a lot of issues with. There have been a few. I still haven't gotten snapdragons to work. I planted an entire flat of them. One is germinated, fingers crossed that we'll actually see some come up. I have not had good success with snaps this year. We're gonna tweak it. It's one of those things. It's a learning curve, and it's a process, and we have to give ourselves grace. At least that's what I keep telling myself. Back to tomatoes. I'm seeing definite differences from the different seed vendors that I used as far as the germination rate. This Golden Jubilee was a Botanical Interests, and pretty much every single seed came up and generated a healthy plant. The same goes for the Pole Cherry, the Brandywine. But seeds I got from other vendors, like this Aunt Ruby that came from Sherwood Seed Company, and this Mr. Stripey came from Etsy, because I couldn't find any Mr. Stripey when I was looking. They haven't done quite as well. Granted, there were only 10 seeds of each one, but still, like, only half came up, and some of them are just kind of stunted and sad. So goes to show you. Oh, and the one that like just blew me away were the ones that I was potting up a second ago. Peaceful Valley. Those seeds were like, let me show you these guys. These are my these are some of my cherry tomatoes. The Chadwick have been a little slow germinating, but they're coming up now. They're pushing their way through. But these seeds are 2017, 2018, so 4 years old, and they've been very vigorous and happy seeds. Compare that to, where is my champagne? Compare that to my champagne tomato. I only had 10 seeds, and I've gotten maybe 2 or 3 viable plants. So, so far, my big winners as far as quality of seeds go have been Burpee. Honestly, like the brand new Burpee just out of the hardware store did remarkably well. Botanical Interests and Peaceful Valley Organics, they've performed beautifully. So, I know who I'm going to be ordering my tomato seeds from in the future. I have not tried Baker Creek's tomatoes. I've tried just about everything else from Baker Creek, so I should probably give them a shot too at some point, maybe next year. I find tomatoes to be one of my favorite things to grow because they are so forgiving. Like, you can pick them up by their leaves. They don't seem to mind all that much. This guy a little mounding. I transplanted my 40 San Marzano tomatoes, and they're all doing beautifully. I used a cell tray for them because I have so many of them. Oh dear. That's one of the other things about tomatoes. The little fuzzy bits on the stem, the stalk, those become roots when you deep plant them. those little fibers will all turn to roots. So if you accidentally lose a little bit of root when you're planting your tomatoes, do not fret, it will probably make it. These other guys are a little spindly. I'm not so sure they're gonna make it out. So I'm going to go ahead and call those a lost cause. For me, I'll plant my tomatoes. I like this guy. He looks good and strong. Sorry, I'm working here. I get the best. I pick out the best for me because I'm doing all the work. Does that mean? I don't know. Not to say the other tomatoes are bad, I just really liked that plant. And that guy, I like this guy. This guy looks good. Oh, we still have more seedlings to go. We have 8 already planted, not including mine, and we still have this many. So we're gonna get another batch of seedlings out with our little spatula forky thing. Just gently, you can use the forky thing to loosen it up, and once the soil's loose, you can just kind of tease them apart. See what I'm doing. Okay. Just gently go slowly. The soil's getting a little compacted there, so we're gonna kind of work our little fork in there and pull out the rest of them. This works exceptionally well for those tiny little seeds. I'll show you another example. I have 40 Rudbeckia plants that just are doing amazingly well, and they were all bulk sowed, which is cool. This technique also works really well when you have what I call stowaways, meaning you've sowed your cell tray and you've ended up with 3 or 4 extra plants. I will very gently, while the plants are still very young. A lot of times they tell you transplant when plants are, have their second set or their first set or second set of true leaves. I don't do it that way because I have this concern that if I let them go too long, the roots will become too well established, and it'll be harder for me to extract said plant. So I've been kind of pulling them up as soon as they come up and they get to a certain size where they're easy to handle, which is why these are going in there with no true leaves. They still have their little seed pushing leaves. It just makes the whole process a little easier. And yes, I may lose some plants in the process, but those were just extra stowaway plants to begin with, so I'm not really out anything. But if I do it well, I end up with an extra tray, possibly 2, of additional seedlings, which, can't hurt, except for the fact that I don't have space for them. I'm curious to see what the yield from this one pot of tomatoes is going to be. Since my goal is to essentially make our farm and the homestead that is attached to that farm cost neutral, this allows me to get all the plants that I need for both my kitchen garden and my in-ground garden, but with a little extra time, I might actually be able to help offset the cost of building our garden fence, our new beds. I think I calculated we have about 6 new beds going in. Possibly more. I need to look at my drawing. If you're in the market for a really good software to help plan your garden, I highly recommend GrowVeg. It's not free, but it is amazing. It allows you to map out your garden. It allows you to plan your plants, and then it gives you a production list as to what exactly you need to grow, and it tells you when you need to plant them. I think I've shown it to you before, but it's very, very good, and it gave me an entire production list of how many chard plants, how many broccoli plants. I think that's it. These guys are a little sad. Oh wait, this guy is not a little sad. This guy's gonna go in a pot. Okay. One thing I don't like about these round pots is they do not stack as well as the square ones for obvious reasons. But they were inexpensive and they look really nice, so I'll live with that. So out of that one pot of tomatoes, not counting my own 2 that I set aside for myself, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 tomato plants, which has the potential to make me about $50, $60. So that's pretty cool. I'm gonna keep working, and I'll show you the result of everything when we get back. So I'm here with all my little tomato babies. We still have a while to go. We still have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 pots of tomatoes, not counting my cherry tomatoes, to pot up. Those 3 pots though, the ones that I showed you, yielded 37 tomato seedlings, including the ones that I'm keeping for my own garden. So it's going to be quite an adventure. Thanks for tuning in. Stick around and let's see how this garden grows.